Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It has been a very interesting time for me in my research and studying on these plasma anomalies. And just like the courageous Trevor Constable, I feel drawn to push forward this torch for the future generations to come of understanding that these UFOs, many of them, are actually biological entities. Now, what I have showing on the screen above me and beside me are images on the left side. Those are actually images that Trevor James Constable took pictures of with his infrared cameras, with many different types. He was studying, what's the best way of, photographing that invisible shadow biosphere realm. And if you would like, you can pause the video and read what the author or what he's saying about what he was capturing. And also, some of these pictures are of a Italian team that actually was doing the same exact thing. And this is, very similar to what Plasmoid Anomaly Study Group does. He took after Trevor James Constable and continued doing the work. And also on the right, or right above me, you'll see actual UFO photos from the past. What I'm trying to do here now is I want to present the case that maybe a lot of these metallic looking crafts are actually a form of life, a life form. There are many different cases of people saying that the craft seemed like it was alive, and I'll actually play that bit for you right now.
At Warner Brothers, and he wanted to tell me about an experience that he had, and that he was in college, and he was on summer break, and he was in the Tetons, outside of Boulder, and he was climbing in the Tetons, and he came up into this meadow, and there was a UFO just sitting hovering right there in the meadow, and he walked all the way over to it, and put his hand on it. He said, and it was like alive. He said, this is alive, this thing, and then the whole thing started kind of shuddering and raised up. So he backed away from it, and it just went and shot away.
Whoa.
Just like that. And he didn't dare tell anybody, because he thought that it would ruin his whole reputation and stuff in the industry.
The craft was, there was a plasma field emitting approximately 12 inches off of the craft inside this white plasma field. The craft seemed about approximately 23 feet long. I stepped forward with my left hand extended and slightly reaching out to it. The craft responded to my movement. This startled me slightly, but I took it and stood still, just in case. By moving back and pivoting the nose away from my hand like a cat or a boxer, and it felt like a cat to me. As I swiped up, the craft emitted a tiger stripe pattern up the starboard side of the craft. As I drew my hand backwards, the pixels popped up, and as I did, the craft purred. It bellowed through my body. I could feel it resonate in my body cavity, and it was very intense. I felt like I was in contact with a living creature.
Okay, hopefully I spliced that and made it correct. But this is this is a very interesting field to me, and the evidence is overwhelming, especially when you tie in the STS missions, the clear signs of these plasmas changing direction, performing hunter-predator behavior. It's spectacular. Okay, so aside from that and these images, I also want to read a excerpt from his book, and this is a case of a encounter that was in 1964. So here we go. There is an incident involving a persistent UFO recounted in Flying Saucers Serious Business by the late Frank Edwards that supports the conception of some UFOs as metallic life forms. The UFO in question began appearing frequently in the middle of 1964 in Rio Vista, California, 60 miles northeast of San Francisco. The relevant passage in the Edwards book appears on page 14 through 15 of the Bantaman book edition. The reports which kept coming in to the sheriff of Solano County described the thing as a torpedo or dirigible shaped, about 5 feet in diameter, 12 to 15 feet long. It glowed a warm red and moved silently. Witnesses told the sheriff one housewife brought in some colored transparencies of just such a thing, which she said she had taken in 1964 as the object hovered near her home. The deputy sheriff, John Cruz of Fairfield, told the San Francisco Chronicles that he finally became interested in the case on September 22nd, 1965, and went to have a look for himself. Residents told him that the thing generally appeared near a water tower about 5 miles from town. That night, an estimated 300 to 400 persons standing patiently in the dark on the hilltop around the tower were rewarded by the appearance of the strange object. Glowing softly red, cigar-shaped, hovering or moving slowly about only a couple of 100 feet from the treetops or the top of the water tower. What makes this incident noteworthy is not the reported appearances of the same object in the same area, but the fact that some of the witnesses told the deputy that boys with 22 shell rifles had shot at the object one night, and the bullets had made a metallic twang and caused the object to flare up brightly for a second. One must disagree with the late Mr. Edwards as to what is noteworthy in this incident, since his fundamental bias was always toward the extraterrestrial intelligence hypothesis. Probably because of this bias, he has overlooked the biological significance of repeated appearances of the object near a source of water. Such a cyclical return to a water source or to an otherwise favored location is a fundamental trait of animal behavior. Alright, so it goes in a little bit more about what Trevor has to say about this case, but I'm just going to add in what I gathered from it. You know, in so many of these different cases, we see the attributes of these things pulsating or glowing. There's another case where, you know, the same thing. Actually, I think it was this case too, where some agents or FBI or somebody got involved and they actually set up microwave or radiation beams and they shot it at the craft when it came, and it staggered and then left. You know, this is like if you were to do that to a biological being or, you know, a human, you would jolt because of this sudden rise in heat, and you would turn red, you would glow red. Same as if somebody pinches you or gets shot with a 22 caliber rifle. Like, that area will become inflamed. And that's the same type of characteristics we see in this case and with many, many more. Now, let's get back to these photos that I have here. And if you've been watching, like, a lot of these look the same, you know, like that's what struck me the most, was that, holy cow, all of the Trevor James Constable photos that he's showing are like very similar to the UFOs that have been taken like in the past, in like the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 50s, right? Like these black and white photos of these things, very similar. The only difference is that Trevor's photos are taken with a infrared camera. He actually does some weird thing where he like reverses the color ratio or something, and like overimposes infrared. I don't really understand it. I'm not really photographically tech savvy, but it's very interesting. And so that's just what I'm hoping to get across with this presentation right here. I just want to present the idea that maybe, you know, a lot of these craft are some form of organic life form, some form of metallic-like being, you know, maybe similar to how like an armadillo, right, has armor, but this is something akin to a mica shell. Another thing that really piqued my interest was the account of Bob Lazar, the characteristics of the craft that he said that he was studying. When he said that when he went into the craft, he didn't see any rivets. There are no nuts or bolts. Everything was smooth. It was like one whole thing, like it had been 3D printed. It said it looked organic. Everything was curved. And that's another attribute that we find with many of these crash retrievals, or people who encounter these things. They describe it as being very organic, like once you start getting down to like the nitty gritty of this stuff, it becomes very interesting. And I suspected on like a previous video that I made a few months ago, probably like 6 months, was that a lot of these craft are actually, let's say if they're inhabited by the non-human intelligence, like the gray aliens, or something else, or the mantis that they found in Nazca, right? Like 60 bodies, 4 different species deemed to be real. You got blood vessels that are connecting to eggs. Inside of them, you have metal implants in their arms and heads that are fused into the bone. Like these are real. Like, we literally have alien bodies, but the public just doesn't care, right? It's not that they have an aversion to it. They just don't pay it any mind, right? But God forbid you try and bring up the idea of a biological UFO and people get mad. It's quite hilarious, if I do say so. But yeah, okay. So like, let's say if those beings, they're obviously connected to the 0 point or the ether, because many people who have encounters, they speak of telepathy. They speak of leaving their bodies. There's they're going through walls and stuff like that. So they can perceive this interdimensional field that encompasses everything, right? What if it's possible that they could also interact with these biological life forms, and if not, coexist with them and use them? We know these things can morph, right? Like, there's so many incredible stories or encounters, experiences with these things. It's beautiful, honestly. In my mind, it's absolutely beautiful. What if they have the ability to actually manifest a ship or a craft? Like understanding that, like, if we were to get into like the quantum realm, right? Like the double slit experiment, where if you're not observing, it becomes a wave, right? So there's this layer of probability. Well, underneath that layer of probability is literally the 0 point, which if we were to tap into, could give us free energy, or over unity, faster than light travel, warp drive, teleportation, anti-gravity, like all of these things. And what if you're able to like think a craft into being? I don't know, that sounds pretty weird. But it really makes me wonder. And then if not that, then it would be that they can coexist with these beings and actually fly in them, kind of like the Star Trek episode Tin Man. Actually, it's pretty interesting. That's a very funny comparison, because in that episode he was a half betazoid, and he couldn't stop himself from reading people's minds, and he wanted to be all alone. And they found like this organic ship that was just flying in space, and it was just alone. It felt very alone to him, and he was in telepathic communication with it, like light years away. And when he met up with it, he was able to just fly in it. It's had like a seat and everything already made for him. Like, super fascinating. I really think that a lot of the storylines in some of those shows like Stargate and Star Trek, once you start digging into like a lot of the old cases, you see a lot of comparisons and stuff in those shows, from like whether it's like you're studying real like DIA intelligence papers on like traversable wormholes, free energy, faster than light travel, declassified FBI documents and stuff, and then you're seeing all of that overlaid into like Stargate, like with the technology that they discuss, like in very subtle forms too. Like there was one episode where the Tok'ra pulled out a device and put it on the table, and then the device had a holographic projection come above it, and Major Carter was like, no mirrors, no usage of whatever, and like she's like, it must be some form, something else. And we have that exact technology, and it's, how is it done? With plasma. Like they can project a holographic image using plasma and even make sound with it, it's quite amazing. And also another thing where there was a documentary person coming in and making a documentary of the SG-1 team, and he was like, can I film the gate? And she was like, yeah. And the dude was like, does it do anything cool? And then she said, Major Carter was like, well, I think you would really enjoy like this bit because we utilize these crystals that actually can blah 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 tap into the 0 point. And then like she just noticed the guy was just like getting bored, and she was like, oh well, it spins and then smokes. Like, because a lot of these free energy technologies would be stationary. They would just be a fixed situation that allows piezoelectric energy. Think about it in terms of like the pyramids. And pyramids don't have any moving parts. It's just a fixed thing that's happening. If you have over unity microchips, or they would use the Casimir effect, nothing's moving. It's a situation. It's a moment in space and time. Sorry to go off on that tangent about technology when I'm trying to discuss biological life forms, but whatever. I hope you guys really enjoyed this, or if these photos piqued your interest. I highly recommend everybody go and read Trevor James Constable's book, The Cosmic Pulse of Life. You can find it on Audible, where you can listen to it. Unfortunately, it's a AI, but it's not too bad. Like, I listened to it at like 1.2, and it's very tolerable. I've listened to it about 5 times already. But you can also read it for yourself for free on archive.com or .org. Just type in The Cosmic Pulse of Life, and you can actually find these pictures that I'm showing on the left, these bad boys, towards the end of the book. And that's all I really wanted to say today. I just wanted to hop on, make some content, because I just gotta get good at this. But yeah, and I just love talking about it too. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I cannot wait to do another one. I will start preparing that now. Much love. Peace out.